which is Detect OT ICS Attacks Before They Reach the OT Network by Oren Niskin, who's from GuidePoint. Oren has 20 years of OT and cybersecurity expertise spanning maritime, manufacturing, and oil and gas. He's a U.S. Navy veteran who served on the Harry S. Truman aircraft carrier, I think, and later led OT cybersecurity for a global fleet of drilling rigs. He's a trusted consultant and scholar with degrees in nuclear engineering technology and information security engineering from the SANS Institute. Welcome, Oren.
Thank you. So my talk is how you can detect OT or industrial control system attacks before they reach the OT network. I'm Oren Niskin, and I am an OT space cowboy with GuidePoint Security. And really not looking forward to following up Vivek's talk. That was awesome. Every time I hear Vivek, I learn like 5, 10, 100 things. So thank you for that. And let's get started. So Oren Niskin, I've been in OT for over 20 years. And you're probably thinking, that doesn't sound right, because 20 years, OT isn't really 20 years old. But first half of my career, I was causing the problems, operating and maintaining control systems on oil rigs and in the Navy. And the second half of my career, I'm trying to make amends and fix all the things. So I'm definitely much more O than T. I'm more comfortable in the bilge with the multimeter, 4 to 20 milliamps, than I am in front of a computer screen looking through Windows event logs, but very cool. So started my career in my Tom Cruise phase in the Navy. I didn't fly, but I was an electrician in the bottom, so I helped power the aircraft carrier that let the jets take off. So, and went on to my Mark Wahlberg phase as electronics technician at Diamond Offshore. So we had a brand new drill ship that came out of Korea, South Korea, and helped operate and maintain it and get it up and running and work out all the kinks. And that's where I learned about OT and the magical threats of using USBs and hanging LTE antennas off the side. And I worked with Jason. He was at NOV, and we'd talk about all the cybersecurity risks, and yeah, I learned a lot. And I actually went ashore to take Greg Villano. I don't know if you've heard of Greg Villano, but he kind of started, I think he was the first in the oil drilling industry to put like a full OT program together. And I saw all this awesome stuff coming on the rig and putting it in, and I was on the rig just like, how can I help? I want to get into this OT cybersecurity thing. It was not a few years after Stuxnet, and it was just wild. Everybody thought we were all going to cyber war, and I wanted to be in it. And I jumped over to Ernst & Young. This is my Ben Affleck accountant phase. So I have a lot of people that play me in movies. It was a really good team at EY, and now I'm in my hacker phase. This is my favorite. So going out to plants and doing red teams and talking to customers and helping bridge that gap between IT, where we have a big focus, and OT, where we're trying to help our customers manage that risk. And so this is the agenda for my talk. You gotta love the robot cow, by the way. I like the Husicon images. So the problem I'm gonna talk about is when you're responding to an incident that's infected systems in your OT network, or a threat that's inside your OT network, you're kind of in a pickle, because anything you do may adversely affect safety, but at the same time, anything the attacker does, they don't care. So you're like at a real disadvantage compared to the attacker when the attacker's in your network. So what I try to do, and this is actually started as I wrote a research paper for SANS for the master's program, where we were looking at how can we detect them earlier, like maybe even before they reach the OT network. So then you can kick them out without risking safety and downtime and all those issues. So that is what we are going to be talking about. And if anybody has any questions, just shout it out. Hopefully less of a monologue, more of interactive. So when you're responding to an incident in OT, I don't know, have any of you had an incident in OT that you had to respond to? Any threats or malware you detected? Probably. Nobody wants to raise their hand. I understand. Anybody had a friend that? No. Okay, we have some in the back there, yeah. So you might know, like, depending on the seriousness, it's usually really expensive, it's risky, and it's really slow. So you can pick two of those to focus on. If you spend a ton of money, you can get it done quicker with lower risk, which is usually what people do. So they have all the incident responders come out, and you have 5 firms trying to work together from different angles, and it is really expensive. And it's still risky and slow. So the thing we could do to make all of this better, to make it cheaper, less risky, and you have more time to respond, is you can detect it earlier. So if you detect it earlier, the whole triangle gets smaller and everything in your life gets better. So everything in your life. So that is what we're going to talk about. So why is it such a pain to respond to incidents in OT? And this is probably sums it up the best. You may have malware on an HMI somewhere, and you go and talk to the production manager and you say, I need to take this HMI offline, I need to contain this host in CrowdStrike or whatever it is. And they say, well, that is necessary for production, sir. And you say, well, it's infected. And they say, yeah, but it's necessary for production. And about 10 minutes of repeating that, they finally say, no, you cannot isolate it. We will take down the HMI during Thanksgiving. So there are many HMIs out there, I know of many, I'm sure you know of many, that have active malware on them that are waiting for Thanksgiving to take them down. And that is definitely, that's just one of the highlights. Usually you have this choice. You can either contain the threat or you can continue production. And that makes everyone very sweaty. These are some other challenges. We work with a lot of clients that have maybe 1,200 sites across the country, well pads or pipeline sites or factories. You may have an airport with tens of thousands of devices on it. So OT is really spread out. And so if you want to respond to an incident at a site, you may have to roll a truck. That's what they call it in the lingo. You have to roll a truck to the site, 8-hour drive. It does not scale. It may take hours to shut down a process. It may be dangerous to shut down the process even. For instance, if you're in an airplane and you want to shut down the process to contain malware, that may be a problem if you're in the air. So to shut down an airplane, you got to land first. Downtime is super expensive. Downtime is the D word. Nobody wants to. Downtime is probably the biggest thing in OT other than safety. You have safety, and then downtime is right after that. Like, very important to minimize downtime. Because if you have a production facility, or when I was on oil rigs, when you take downtime, all of the company's costs are the same, but you just take money right off the bottom line. So if my rig was down for a day, that was $500,000 in profit they just lost. They had to have everybody still there working. All the machines, you still have to pay for everything. You have to pay for food and supplies, but you're just not making any money. So really important to minimize downtime in OT. And the last thing is lack of security. So when you go to respond to incidents in OT, once it's in there, a lot of times the only tool you have is a network detection tool, which are great. They're really great to have, and some people don't even have that. But when you actually go to respond to the incident on the HMI, you want to know like what the processes are. You want to know inside the host information, and a lot of times you don't have that, and that's unfortunate. It makes it much more difficult to respond. So to describe when an attack happens in OT, it doesn't magically appear in OT as much as we think. You know, as OT practitioner, I've spent my whole career waiting for it to land in OT, and then I would respond to it. But in actuality, the attack happens on the internet or somewhere higher up. It has to be delivered into OT somehow. So for instance, It may happen as a phishing attack in IT. Somebody in finance or marketing, they click on all the phishing links. They click on the link, exploit happens. That's delivery and exploit. They get persistence, that's install, modify, and they reach out to their command and control. That's all standard IT stuff. And usually your IT department will find it and block it. So most of the threats, probably 9 out of 10, IT is blocking before they ever reach the OT stage. So you could thank actually your IT department for stopping 9 out of 10 OT attacks. Kind of, don't tell them I said that though. They're still my enemy. So once that happens though, this is where they start to act different. They are in IT and they start looking for your OT systems. They can't, unless, it's really hard for them to know where your OT systems are without scanning for them, right? So they're going to do all these things that will tip us off that there are OT attack planned. Once they find your OT systems and they get into OT, that's when things get more complicated. And that's stage 2. Stage 2 of the SANS ICS kill chain. Stage 2 is where now they're in OT and they say, okay, now we need to plan our attack. And they leave and they go and develop and test their attack. So for instance, during Stuxnet, anybody heard of Stuxnet? Sorry, yeah, everybody. During Stuxnet, they actually manufactured a replica uranium centrifuge cascade from Iran in Oak Ridge, allegedly made an entire replica of it in Oak Ridge National Laboratory in Tennessee and tested their attack on that. And that took probably months, maybe a year, to perfect their attack. And as an asset owner, you have no visibility into that because it's not happening, it's happening somewhere else. So they got into OT, now they're testing their attack that they're going to use, but you don't see any of that. Then they come back. They deliver, install, modify, and execute. And all of that is pretty quick. Like, they go there, they write the value to the PLC, and it causes something bad to happen. So by the time they're in OT, you have not a lot of time, there's a lot of risk, and it's really hard for you to respond. So, but yeah, and that is where we focus. So most of our attention is focused right there. For my whole career, that's where I've focused, on how to detect the threats and stop them when they reach OT. And OT generally ignores all that. So we don't know, we don't care about what happens on the IT network. And up to C2, that's probably right. But when you get to the ACT stage, where they're actually looking for OT systems in IT still, that is the choke point where we can detect the 1 out of 10 that's making it through that's actually going to be a risk to us. So, and that's not to say that OT detection is not important. I look at OT detection like the smoke alarm and a fire extinguisher. You need that smoke alarm and fire extinguisher to alert you to a fire and to allow you to put out that fire. But it's much less risky to prevent the fire in the first place. And that's the key, really. That's what we're trying to do. So it's still critical. Hopefully, you have OT detection in place and it never detects a thing because you block everything. And it's still extremely valuable. You still want smoke detectors in your house, but hopefully you never have a fire. So, there we go. Why is this not happening so far? Why am I talking about this? So I've been in many clients and haven't seen it happen yet where they're looking for OT threats in IT. And generally the reason is because OT is OT and IT is IT. OT people are concerned about the process. OT people are concerned about safety and threats to downtime and stuff like that. But OT people don't care about social security numbers. You could hide medical records in OT and nobody's going to care. Credit card, nobody cares. And the opposite is true of IT. So IT is only looking for social security numbers and PII and PHI and PCI and all the regulated stuff. So if you send a social security number across there, they're going to catch it. But if somebody's attacking OT, nobody cares. So this is the challenge of marrying these two groups to better detect threats. Because attackers, they use the whole enterprise. So this is the converged plant-wide Ethernet model, which we may have one of the authors in this room. Pascal Ackerman, everybody loves Pascal. So the idea here is, though, the number one thing attackers are going to do to find your systems is they're going to scan your network for OT systems, right? So if the first thing you need to do is you need to segment your OT systems off of IT. Everybody knows that. So that's the first thing. But the thing that people don't do a lot is once you've segmented it, now you need to detect where people are trying to find those OT systems on the network using network scanning. So for instance, you may have host-based firewall logs where people are trying to network scan for industrial protocols. You may have OT remote access systems that are getting hammered, password sprayed, but nobody's monitoring those logs because they're on the IT side or something like that. So these are kind of the three ways. Firewall logs too. If you have a firewall between OT and IT, are you auditing those logs to see if anybody's trying to get around those firewall rules? Because any of this segmentation stuff, it's not a silver bullet. What it gives you is time until they can find their way around it. So what you need to do is detect it before they find that way. So it's a race between you and the attacker. And a lot of people don't even know they're in the race. They put the firewall in there, and that's it. So they don't even know they're in the race. But you are. It's a race. So first thing you must do, thou shalt segment thy OT network. So let's talk about actual attack. Let's get down to brass tacks. It's going to start with phishing, but it could start with anything. Maybe there's a Cisco ASA vulnerability, the critical one that just came out, where people are exposed to the internet and they get compromised and they get their initial foothold in IT. What are they going to do with that initial foothold? They're going to start scanning your network. So for instance, the Havex malware, Havex got installed on people's system and it started scanning for Modbus. It started scanning for industrial control system devices on the network. And if you're not looking for it in IT, you may not notice this infection is happening, and then something gets infected in OT, and all of a sudden you have a problem. So, for instance, this is an Nmat for, this is a IT user is scanning, his infected machine is scanning for Modbus, Siemens, and Rockwell. So if you were to look for somebody scanning for Modbus TCP, there's a prize here. Who knows what TCP port that is? You're not allowed to answer. Who said it first? Who wants it?
I can't take it, sorry.
It's yours.
No, it's not mine. Here, just set it.
All right. This is a harder one. Siemens. 20,000. I was not familiar with that one.
Are you talking about S7 or are you talking about?
S7. ISO TSAP. Siemens. Oh man, this is no good. It's 102. Siemens is 102. What about Rockwell? Everybody knows Rockwell. Yes, 44818. And 222. You're right too. So actually, I have two. So you can, who said 222? Yep. All right, you get one, and you get one. Oh man, I thought that was going to hit his head.
IT loves that one, by the way, because 222 is a remote access group as
Oh,
well.
nice. Yeah, that looks like a Metasploit module, 2222. So that was fun. Okay, so this IT user is scanning for TCP 502, scanning for TCP 102, and scanning for TCP 44818, and I think UDP 2222, right? Isn't it? Or maybe it's both.
Depends on.
Yeah, so anyway, these are not normal protocols in the IT network, so you should not see them. If I go back to the last slide, there's a, you shouldn't see web, email in the bottom. You shouldn't see SIP or any of these protocols any of these industrial protocols in the IT network. So that should give you a clue, and it's pretty easy to implement, and it will tell you that somebody is attacking your OT system from the IT network, and you can kick them out sooner. So you shouldn't see, these are examples, HART. So HART is directly to the sensor. So you definitely shouldn't see that in IT. And maybe you have, if you do see it, that's a good indication that either somebody's installed something they shouldn't in IT, or somebody's attacking you. And the next thing they'll do after they scan is they are going to enumerate Active Directory. So I had no idea you could do this. Actually, Pascal showed me. You can, even as a regular domain user, you can enumerate all the users in the domain. You don't have to be administrator or anything. You just have any kind of credential in Active Directory, and you can enumerate every user in Active Directory and what groups they belong to, and then you can enumerate every computer. And so I've been on a couple red teams now, and you enumerate the computers, and you see SCADA jump. And this happens multiple times on the IT network. And OT has no idea this thing is there, the OT security. The engineers put it in, but it's in IT, so OT is like, none of my business. So, but that is definitely going to be found by hackers. And if they find this, they're going to exploit it, and they're going to get access, direct access to your OT network. And so what we can do is look for people looking for our OT assets. Yeah, Bloodhound is a key. That's what they're going to do. Bloodhound, perfect. So here's an example of a Windows host-based firewall log. So this is just the Windows default firewall. But if you have a fancy EDR tool or some kind of microsegmentation tool, you're going to have much more fidelity, which I'm sure everybody in here, nobody's running just the default Windows firewall. You're going to have logs, and if you analyze these logs for the industrial protocol, you can find these attacks. So this is one detection method. A better detection method is probably some NDR on the IT network that is looking for these ports. So I don't want to say any vendor's name, but something, yeah, some kind of IT NDR. That would definitely help you and be a lot easier than sorting through host firewall logs. But there's a lot of options. And here is something else we could do, and this is actually what I wrote my research paper on, and my favorite part, is we can, once we've taken all of our OT systems out of IT, we can put a fake computer in Active Directory. So you put a fake computer named SCADA jump, and I can almost guarantee they're not going to be able to pass that up. They're going to have to interact with it. If there's an adversary in your network and they enumerate the computers and they see a SCADA jump, it's not really connected to the OT network. It's there just as a lure. Yes, exactly. And it's not providing any risk because it's not actually running. So it's just there in Active Directory, and they find it, and they say, oh, I'm going to see if it's up. Ping SCADA jump, and boom, you get. Here's what it would look like actually in an attack. So the user gets phished, they enumerate, they find SCADA jump. It's a trick though, and you get this log right here. This is from Windows Server DNS. So you have to actually enable Windows Server to log DNS, which is crazy, I think. But once you enable it, you'll get this log, and you have something that parses that log like a Splunk or anything at all, and boom, you see SCADA jump being pinged, and that's an indication that somebody's targeting you. Like there's no reason why somebody should ping SCADA jump. It's just a computer that nobody should be using in Active Directory. So it's low false positives, but high if somebody's in there, very likely they're going to use it and find it. So here is the second. So that was a pretty good one. This one is also very good. They're going to start searching IT file shares for juicy documents. So everywhere I've worked and everywhere I've been to, every client I've been to, unless they're NERC SIP high, they have all their schematics in IT on a network share that everybody can access. So schematics, network diagrams. I've even found a risk register. So like these are all the things vulnerable in our network, what we're doing about them, and what could possibly happen. And that's pretty juicy for a red teamer.
Excel file with all the passwords.
Excel file, yes, Excel file with all the passwords. I think I found job aids like how to enroll a user in multi-factor. And I'm like, oh, thank you very much, I will do that. So yeah, all kinds of things you could find. They're trying to be helpful, and they're being helpful to the attacker because they're leaving it unprotected. So, like,
Just a comment about the nerd step 5. If you look on SharePoint, because everybody has to do their nerd step audits, you will find all that information in the nerd step 5 environment in shared folders, because that's what the teams collaborate. So, if you're a nerd step 5 entity, leaving all that stuff in your documents you provide to the monitor,
that's messed up.
share, because that's the way they do it. Everything's in Excel and all the diagrams and stuff. So just start looking at SharePoint.
Yeah, and people are trying to be helpful, right? Like they're trying to keep everybody updated, but they're actually keeping the adversary updated too. That's a good point. Yeah, audit trainings, you can get everybody's name and from a file share that has a bunch of auditing documents, and now you have maybe usernames you could password spray, or they're just in an Excel file, which we've found.
The Excel file is great because people color code them on what's efficient and what's not.
Yeah, that's true. Tag data is also great. Like you get a export of a historian or something. There are a lot of times PLC project files, they'll be in protection relays. So if you're a transmission or distribution, you'll have protection relay configurations that everybody has to be on the same page with, but you don't want to make them available. So like the Death Star, so I like to say it's like Star Wars. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. When Luke Skywalker attacked the Death Star and destroyed it, we all know he was the hero for doing that. But the real hero were the spies that got the Death Star plans, the secret Death Star plans. And so when attackers are in your environment, they're looking for the Death Star plans. Because without the Death Star plans, they can't destroy your Death Star. So what you need to do is you need to get all that stuff, classify it, protect it, and monitor it. So classifying it means, this is confidential stuff. So everybody knows this is confidential, and they're not allowed to disclose it or copy it to a USB drive. Protect it means only people that need access to it should have access to it. And monitor it means if somebody puts it on if I transfer a bunch of protection relays to a USB drive, someone should get an alert that happened. Or if I try to put it on Dropbox or something weird, or somebody from finance is trying to access my protection relay configurations, that should stand out. So, what are ways we can detect it? So first we protect it. Now how do we detect somebody looking for this stuff? Because that will allow us to know that there's an attack happening before it reaches OT. So you could look through access denied logs, like audit logs for these files, either in SharePoint or wherever you're storing them. Or you could implement a data loss prevention, which is probably what I would recommend. Like, we're using data loss prevention for our most critical files, or what we think our most critical files are, which is like social security number, databases, customer records, our financial stuff. But are we viewing our actual most sensitive files, how our OT systems work? Are we labeling those with data prevention, data loss prevention? And that's what we should be doing. Because in my opinion, protecting social security numbers and leaving your schematics available for everybody is kind of like walking into a bank and they're protecting their customer records and leaving the money on the floor. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. So you could tell this is where I was going to go. In addition to protecting this, you could also plant fake files. So this is really fun to do, actually. So you go all around your file system and plant these juicy-looking files in places you think the attacker is going to go. So I've seen these in sysvol shares. Attackers go in there and they have scripts that look for interesting files. And they'll bump over these files and grab them. And when they do, we get alerted with this event ID 4656, which is an audit. So you have to actually enable this on the file. So it's not for every file in your operating system or your computer will crash. But if you have, let's say, 5 or 10 or maybe even 20 sprinkled around your network, like little fish hooks waiting for somebody to bite, it's only those few files that have this enabled on it. And if anybody opens it or moves it or copies it or anything, you get an alert that somebody messed with this file. And this is a little bit messier than the fake computer one. So the fake computer one is an object in Active Directory. Probably nobody's going to mess with it. Maybe a vulnerability scanner or something, but very few people are going to explore Active Directory. But they do like to explore folders. So you may have some curious person that opens it that is actually allowed to open it, but they didn't know it was a decoy. But in general, after a little while, I think people will get used to it, and you could find places where maybe that doesn't happen. And this is a good way. People are not going to be able to pass up some of these things, like remote access instructions. If I'm an attacker, that's extremely juicy looking document, and I'm probably going to click on it. Or like I said, how to enroll yourself in MFA, I'm going to probably click on that. And it'll load up some fake information that will not help them, and it'll also alert you. So a lot of people think the deception thing is to point them in the wrong direction and make them go down a rabbit hole. And while that may be true, the real thing it should do is alert you that something is going on, and you can kick them out before your really bad day happens. So this is the third thing people do. They search for OT or industrial control system users. So things like OT remote access, or if you have a historian that they can get to and look at screens, or any of these IT users that have some OT privileges, that's the next thing they're going to look for. So they're going to look for the systems, they're going to look for interesting files, and then we're going to look through users. And like I said, you can get all the users just enumerating the users with no privileges. You can get every single user, and so I'll do that, and then I'll notice this remote access Active Directory group and this wastewater engineers Active Directory group. I've seen OT security Active Directory groups, or network firewall configurators or administrators. And these are all juicy groups that I'm going to want to create my own user and give them those groups, or I'm going to want to password spray those users or trick them, social engineer them into giving me their credentials. So these are things you definitely need to protect. And the best way to protect them is to separate your OT and IT credentials. And this is not new, but a lot of people do it kind of halfway, or they don't think about it all the way through. So things I've seen are like, we have completely separate domains, IT domain and OT domain, completely separate, but when you log into the remote access system, all the users' credentials for OT are vaulted in the remote access system. So all I need are IT credentials, and I get whatever access I need to into OT with nothing standing in my way. I don't have to actually enter so in my opinion, that's pretty much you have IT credentials. Or I'll see they have an IT username in the IT Active Directory, and then they have an OT username. So like Oren, Niskin, OT, and that's my OT username, which is then susceptible to all these attacks. So this is really important to protect to separate as much as you can, and any users that do have rights into OT or for industrial processes like historians or anything like that, it's critical to have heightened awareness of these users, and be more alert to any kind of activity with them. Because if you have, let's say, 10 users in the wastewater engineers group, and somebody password sprays those 10 users, it's probably going to fly under everybody's radar in IT. Like 10 failed login attempts is not moving the little needle on the Splunk gauge. So nobody's going to think anything about it. So, as you can tell, this is a trend here. You can make a fake user. And this is really cool. So I actually got this. I wish I invented this, but saw a YouTube video with John Strand from Black Hills InfoSec. Not paid by them. I wish I was. So they have a YouTube video, which I could share with you if you want. But they created a fake user, and they put it in legitimate groups. So these are the actual groups, but the password is so long that the risk of it actually being compromised is pretty low. And what they do is, if somebody password sprays that group, they're going to trip over that user and let you know. And that's the ID you get. 4624. Anybody know what 4624? It's successful login. I think it's successful. And then 4625 is failed login. So you're going to get these on your endpoint. So in conclusion, we want to monitor the IT network, especially for OT attacks, because if we can kick them out in the IT network, it's going to be much easier. You have much more time. It's much less risky, and it's much less expensive to do that. Not to say that OT detection isn't critical. And these are my references. SANS ICS kill chain, huge fan. Lockheed Martin kill chain, also huge fan. And like I said, the Black Hills InfoSec. And I wrote a research paper. If you want to know how to do it in detail, I got a research paper on it. You could message me on LinkedIn right here. This is me. That QR code is not a phishing, I promise. And that's it.
Okay, hang on. Just hold your hand up and I will get to you.
Thanks. That was great. In this current world where there is a shift in the timing, where it's sit and wait instead of enact immediately, do you have alternative methods of trying to detect the long wait strategy? Do you know what I'm asking?
Yeah, you're saying like they
Plant it and implement it at a time of your choice. Right.
Right, like,
So
I think
that's sort of a different strategy, and I'm wondering if there's a different approach to detecting that.
Yeah, that is a good question. I think the Dimitri from CrowdStrike, he spoke a keynote talking about that. Like, they're getting into our networks now, just waiting for the right moment when they want to strike. That's a good question. I'd say very tough, but maybe, yeah, threat hunting is the only thing I could think of for that. Like, so you have your detections that you have built in that you think work, and then kind of wait around for an incident, and then there's the alternative of like actively going through and saying, what if I was compromised by this group? And you go in and see, do I have the logs that would detect that? And if you don't, then maybe implement those logs, and you just get better and better as you do those. Because yeah, you're right. I think a huge danger in OT, especially because we don't have incidents that often, is we get stagnant and complacent in our detections, and we're not exercising IT. Tabletop exercises are great too. Yeah, that's true.
The average weight out there, found out that cyber was over 100.
Hang on one second. Start over, bud, so everybody can hear it.
Was over 120 days. And so if you're going to take those type of sit and wait incidents in OT, it really comes down to your baseline of what's changing gradually over time, because many times the people are in there not to steal data, but to cause disruption. So they're waiting for where they could literally put in a piece of code today, and they know that that operation is going to change in 6 months when there's the new manufacturing cycle or there's downtime, and they will update that code. And I actually worked on one incident where a manufacturer wanted to basically attack a competitor, and they actually put that code in place, and the new production year was coming out, and their plant was down, and they knew that if they had them down, they could pick up business from it. So there is the sit and wait approach of, but how do you find that? What's your determining factors? And now you have to look at code changes and other things in your environment, but the sit and wait model is very big for the opportunistic of doing damage to another competitor or something.
Absolutely. It's a hard problem because you haven't detected them. They're already in your environment, and they probably have valid credentials. So they probably look like a normal user.
I just have a kind of a comment and then kind of a statement around that. I think a lot of folks don't often realize that most people want to know what the end game is for these attackers, and sometimes the end game is just to get to that canary that you got to and not take a next action because they're building a playbook for maybe some other adversarial behavior in another environment. And they just want to know, okay, if I get to here and I run this query, what's that outcome? They don't want to necessarily take that next stage or that next goal. So having these really well-defined understandings of your canaries in the coal mine here and having your honeypots in the right areas is important. But it doesn't necessarily mean that just because they didn't do anything doesn't mean that they're not. It's like breaking into your house every day and not stealing anything. They're just looking through all your drawers and then,
That's true.
they're not necessarily trying to steal your stuff maybe. They're maybe stealing your neighbor's stuff, but they now know the layout of your house. So thank
Absolutely.
you for giving the talk.
Absolutely. It's my favorite person. Go ahead.
So one of the challenges with the development of Stuxnet was the amount of time and effort and money it took to create that physical twin of the process that they were trying to manage and manipulate. With everybody trying to be faster and cheaper at it, do you foresee adversaries trying to leverage digital twins and the information around that more? And if so, how would you recommend that we either protect that data or set it up as a landmine?
Ooh, that'd be cool. Yeah, I know as a defender, we're using digital twins in the same way because we're trying to find the needle in the haystack attack path that we didn't see. So, I saw Vivek's Phrenos. They have a really cool platform that does something similar. And yeah, I like that approach a lot for defense. So I can only imagine how awesome it is for offense. And I would also add that a lot of the big attacks like Ukraine electric grid and these were failures because they didn't properly test it. And so imagine with digital twins, if they can at scale test these things and make them much more reliably executed, that's pretty scary. And it's a very good idea to have something that will trip all their systems up, like maybe a wrong firewall config that they suck into their model and it completely misrepresents what your firewall actually is. Yeah, old firmware versions. I could see that totally. That's a good idea.
Hang on one second.
And it's also key to be in a community. So, which I think relates back to what Grayson was saying, is we all have to share our knowledge. So if somebody's breaking into my neighbor's house and I really need to know about it because we're part of a community and they're going to come after me next.
No, that's a really
See?
good point. That's why I wanted to bring up. I love how you're highlighting how it can get stopped in the IT side even if it's focused on OT. Do you think, objectively, that the biggest vulnerability then is just the lack of collaboration between the IT and the OT side and that lack of friendliness?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if it's lack of friendliness. It's just people are busy. And so if I'm going to focus on something, I want to focus on my network. Yeah, they are our enemy, yeah. They get 90% of the budget, 90% of the people, and then we're making all the power for a power company. That makes no sense to me. But I'm not going to get started. No, I think, so that's part of the reason we need security is across the whole enterprise, I think. I think we're doing ourselves a disservice. Like a lot of places I go to, they have OT tools and they have an OT SOC and they have OT, everything's OT and they never talk to IT and it's just a shame because IT is your best defense. IT knocks 9 out of 10 threats away before they even get to you. So yeah, but I think it's just people are busy and not aligned, I guess. Their incentives aren't aligned. They're not paid to watch for OT threats. They're paid to watch for social security numbers. And we need to change that and make us all one team. That's good.
Okay, hang on.
She has a good questions.
So, more of a comment. I think it's also that there is a very difficult language barrier that IT security isn't explained in OT terms of process and the language they use for audits. And there's just a lack of translation for some of this that is something that we can fix.
Yeah, that's a hard one too. On all levels, incident response, they want to disconnect your stuff and reboot stuff, and they don't see a reason why. Yeah, it's a challenge.
Yeah, it's not just the reason, though. It's the words we use.
The words
It's
we
the
use.
words
okay.
we use in IT security about how something is disrupted. If you look at the words in a NERC world of how they report a disruption, it's a completely set of language. And so the easier that we can translate between the two sets of language, even though it's the same outage, it's just described differently with different words and different processes.
Yeah, that's so true, especially with NERC. That's a whole nother, they have acronyms with acronyms inside of them.
Anyone else?
I'm still learning NERC language.
I know somebody can stump him. Who can stump him?
I was stumped already.
You've been stumped. Okay, here we go.
It's more in response to her comment about NERC SIP, and I think it's cultural. We're a safety world in OT. They're a security world in IT. When we talk about downtime and disruptions, IT looks at them from I have a backup, let's restore a cloud instance mindset, no matter what the nomenclature. OT, they're looking at downtime. Now they're looking at plant-wide operations. They're looking at safety. They're looking at they don't have a backup, non-recovery mindset. When Oren brought up the tabletops, IT does tabletops, and it's like, very simple, we have a cloud, or we'll just make a backup here or do this. OT, how do you do that tabletop and say that you have that backup? We've been in many incidents, and us together, Oren, where a customer said, first thing I'm going to do is disconnect the internet from that facility. And knowing their infrastructure, there were safety systems, cameras, VoIP, all these other things going through that connection to that facility. There's no context around that. There's no context of why it matters. So not only do we need to get the nomenclature right, we need to get the understanding of what is impacted that crosses that divide of that DMZ. Because let's remember, 3.5 didn't exist in the beginning in the Purdue model that's out there. Now you're looking and you're seeing people putting 6 and 7 out there to put an AI in the cloud. They just think it's a cake that you can keep stacking layers. The problem is it's eventually going to topple over, and everything is basically going to fall into the same bucket as it is now. So we have to understand that. And that goes to your context, and that goes to training people the right way to understand why it matters. Because changing the nomenclature is only one area. Changing the culture is the other.
I really like that. And I would add, too, we have to do that. It's not optional. We tried growing completely separate OT teams, and generally you just can't get enough people, you can't get enough help, and can't get enough expertise. They're not 1,000 OT people that can come work for your company, if you could even afford that. So we have to work with IT, because they have 90% of the people.
So he wanted somebody to stump you. And I happened to notice something earlier on when you were doing your intro. You were talking about getting a new rig and doing setup and commissioning on it.
Yes.
And you had this almost pregnant pause, and then you had to clarify South Korea. Is there a story behind this?
No. We were actually,
Good question.
my rig was built in like 2013, 2014, and that was during the time where the other Korea was very upset. And they kept saying like they were gonna nuke us, all kinds of stuff, and yeah, our company was like, don't worry, we have plenty of experts that will help you get out of the country. And I was like, I'm so worried. I'm still worried. But yeah, South Korea, definitely. It was very cool. Yeah. It's a beautiful, beautiful country. I've never seen anything like it. Very cool. It was recommend it. If you get to build something new, it's nice.
Oren, you did a great job. I think everybody's done.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.